discipline that we're considering. It's what I've called bhakti, well, not I, but what is traditionally known as bhakti yoga, the discipline of love. It may strike you as being odd that you have to discipline yourself in order to love, but actually love is quite a discipline, because it's so easy to withhold our love for many reasons. But this is the first step in the process of elevating the quality of our personal relationships. Now, as I said from the top of the workshop, that this kind of approach that we're taking today, I know it's radical. I know it's very different from a lot of our preconceived notions of how relationships should go. And I want to therefore spend a little bit more time on this first method because of its radical departure from our normal attitudes that we bring into relationships. And I don't think Rob or Sister Kia here or anybody else in here are putting forth reactions that are not normal. All of us have the feeling that, well, Bhagwan, listen, if I'm in a relationship and this relationship is not panning out for me, not paying off, not pleasing to me, et cetera, then to remain in that relationship is stupid. To remain in that relationship is crazy. It is, as Lieutenant Rajneesh pointed out to me, says, it's a form of abuse. He says, if a person was in a relationship where they're being beaten on a regular basis, who in their right mind will counsel them to stay in that kind of abusive relationship? He's pointed out that, well, in some sense, to stay in a relationship that is not fulfilling strikes him as also being abusive, and therefore any recommendation that you stay in such a relationship will be perceived as being counterproductive. And I understand the mindset out of which those kinds of objections arise. But I want you to understand that, first of all, most of the things that we may be calling emotional abuse, may not even be technically emotional abuse as we clinically use the word. And you have to understand there's a distinction. We all tend to make ourselves victims. That's a very clever way of us rationalizing our reactivity, as Baba pointed out. But reactivity is reactivity, no matter how we dress it up, you see, as opposed to real clinical situation. So I want you to be clear that I'm not advocating you staying in a relationship where there's actual abuse, harm, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what we're talking about. That, in fact, is not the practice of the discipline of love at all. That is pathological. That means that you have a lot of work to do on the self-respect part of the equation. What I'm talking about is this tendency in all of us, this mental habit, this ego habit of always reacting when someone don't love us by not loving them. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what reactivity that Baba talked about earlier is about. Whenever you have the feeling of being unloved, you withhold your love. Now, the feeling of being unloved, that's your perception. It need not be rooted in any reality whatsoever. Will it make a difference to the reactive ego? No. It is your perception. And not only is it your perception, and it need not be rooted in any reality whatsoever, does it need to be something pertaining to the moment? No. It could be based on something that happened 20 years ago. You forgot my the wedding anniversary 20 years ago, therefore you don't love me. Now this is quite a leap in logic, isn't it? Right? And because of that misperception that took place 20 years ago, you carry that and you define that as an unloving act. But remember, it's your perception. Now, contrast that to the kind of abuse that we're talking about in the clinical sense, where somebody really puts a gun to your head and starts beating on you. That's not a misperception, is it? That's an actual thing going on. But the so-called emotional abuse that you are claiming to be subject to, that's your perception. You're putting that spin on it. And very often, that spin has all to do with the ego. And this habit that we all have formed of withholding our love whenever we feel unloved. And the whole aim and objective of the discipline of love, of bhakti yoga, is to break that habit in us. To break that habit in us. Now, I have witnessed in my lifetime, both personally and professionally, that almost all of the conflict in these relationships are not of the clinical type, but of this ego type. Pure and simple. It is this inability to transcend the habit of withholding our love whenever we feel that we're being unloved. What I call kid stuff, playground stuff. Hitting back because the perception that there's somebody up here. So when we talk about this here, it's very important that you understand the distinction between this kind of perceived abuse and the actual real deal. Now, I'm sure that there's been those of us who've been in a situation where there was some real abuse. But I know that there are many of us who are in a situation now where abuse is perception, it's perceived, it's not even grounded in any reality whatsoever. So let us spend the balance of our time exploring this kind of pseudo abuse. Okay? Now, I was asking the question before break for a description of what is really going on inside of our relationships. Now, it's really, really important that we really consider these things. And I was asking you to give me some kind of description or explanation of, or some kind of way that you arrive at the feeling that you are unloved. Because that seemed to be the problem. The feeling that you are unloved. And that causes your reaction in relationship. Because fundamentally you feel unloved for whatever reason. And we need to understand, is that feeling justified? Or is it just your perception? And we got to peel that. Otherwise you're going to keep carrying this attitude with you in every relationship that you go into. And the outcome will always be the same because you have not changed. So we want to explore that. And I know that when we are born into this world, we have that experience from Jump Street that so much, if not all of our love needs are dependent upon others. And we soon discovered that you can't always depend with absolute certainty on the other people loving you. We have that experience though. Even with our parents, right? Yes, Khadija.
Do you think that perception that you talked about, the feeling of love, does it seem that it has some spiritual base in the way that we are taught that it's okay, for instance, to love others that don't believe as we do, or that many times those of us that are raised with certain doctrines, I can't speak for all of them, but the Quran, the Bible says, well, if those people didn't believe in Allah or Yahweh or something, so smite them. Yeah. And so we get that kind of a lesson on Sundays in Sunday school, that there are people that if we don't perceive them feeling the way we do, then we can even kill them.
Sure.
So certainly in a relationship, if now the person is no longer perceiving or going back and forth with the love thing, now we can certainly dislike them and decide that it's not a satisfying thing.
Sure, absolutely. And again, this effort, this concept of others pleasing us is large. It's not just on the physical, although there's a physical component, right? Each and every one of us carry within ourselves a concept, an ideal of when the other person is physically pleasing us, whether it's sexually in the bed or what have you, right? So that covers a whole range of interactions, a whole level of interaction. Each of us have our own ideals along that line. But the same is the case emotionally, isn't it? The same is the case mentally, and of course spiritually. But here's the interesting thing mentally is what your opinion said. We have a lot, whenever somebody's opinion is different from ours, we have the experience of that person not being pleasing mentally, right? That's not a pleasant experience for somebody to have a strong disagreement with you about your opinion about something. And because they're disagreeing with you, not pleasing you, you have the felt experience of being unloved. And that's interesting. You say, the person don't love me because they disagree with me. Now look at that. Look at that. I want you to examine your incidents of having the experience of being unloved that is based entirely upon somebody disagreeing with your opinion. Your opinion about something. And that disagreement about your opinion about something begins to escalate, don't it? Right? It escalates until now you got an all-out war. And remember, whenever you're having the feeling that someone is not loving you, not only do you withhold your love, you tend to separate yourself from that situation or person. Again, you move deeper back into your ego. Remember I said that ego is this act of separating. It's the sense of separation. And whenever you feel unloved, you immediately try to contract. You recoil and you separate. Physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. You contract. Right? And that has become a habit in us. Now that's the thing I want you to understand. It's become a habit, and as long as you remain unawares of this process going on, you will remain a victim of these mental habits. And the first step in breaking any kind of habit is awareness. You have to become aware. But to become aware, you have to come out of denial. You have to stop clinging so much. You have to release your grip a little bit and see this thing for what it is. This whole process of clinging to that which you feel will be pleasing, either now or at some future point. That is what constitutes attachment. Attachment is always tied up with this pleasing ambition in us. Now, the person may not be pleasing you for the moment, but, he's a good guy, he got a good education, later on he's going to make $1 million, so I'm going to hang. You see? I'm going to hang in this relationship. And you're clinging to that relationship, right? With the expectation that at some point in time, in the future, your own expectations will be fulfilled. And they will be very pleasing. So sometimes the pleasing need not even be tangible. Just the ideal that it will be pleasing is enough to keep you clinging in that relationship, right? At a level of attachment. And again, the whole ideal is to become increasingly aware of how we deal with these situations. And what I was suggesting to you is that the way out of these situations is through the practice of these particular sets of disciplines with awareness. And the first category that we were talking about is this discipline of love. So what do that mean, the discipline of love? That means that now in your relationship, real homework, not the intellectual reading book stuff, don't count, because that's in your head. Real homework would be for you to leave from here and begin to practice the discipline of love within the context of your existing relationships. You don't have to go out here and create no more relationships. You got plenty of material work right where you are at. And to practice this, breaking of this mental habit of recalling, contracting, withdrawing, every time you have the perception of being unloved. And then see with your own eyes what I'm talking about. Because it does you no good to simply, to run off of my conviction. I want you to conduct the experiment within your own life and really see the difference that it makes. Really see this, really catch yourself, see yourself doing that. And practice it. Will it be difficult? probably the most difficult thing you ever did in your life. The most difficult thing you ever did in your life. So many unnecessary separations. And these separation comes in all kinds of forms, don't it? Divorce is one, right? You're in a relationship, right? You having the experience of not being loved because someone disagrees with your opinion about something or whatever it may be, right? There's many ways in which this feeling of being unloved can manifest itself. Be that as it may, whenever you have that experience, you will want to separate, you will want to withdraw, you'll recoil, you'll want out. So divorce is a form of separation. What are some of the other forms of separation? Yes, Khadijah?
I think sometimes we also do that too with children.
Yes, ma'am. Because we have not even said anything about children, have we? As if our relationships are made up of only these love relationships. But they're not.
We send them away.
Sure.
Or punish them.
Sure. What happens when that child of ours has acted in such a way that we perceive as being unloving? What do you do in that relationship with that child now? Do you not separate yourself from your own child? Do you not make it a condition for your own blood and flesh that they must please you in order for you to love them? Look at this. Now look at this thing. And what happens to this child who's been raised by a person who has this kind of attitude? That I am only going to love you when you please me. What happens to that child? What do you expect will happen to that child? Mothers, fathers, therapists? What's going to happen to that child? First of all, the child is going to become a pleaser, right? They're going to become a pleaser. They're going to get caught up in that pleasing syndrome. However superficial it is, it doesn't need to be sincere. Just pleasing because they're being taught that I got to please, I got to please, I got to please. A sycophant, something ugly. Right? What else happens to that child that is a victim?
When they don't get pleased, then they do the very same thing. They send people away, or
They duplicate that same kind of attitude in their own relationship. Just like abusers grow up and be abusers, that same kind of process. So it becomes not intergenerational, right? You are actually polluting society now with other miniature versions of yourself. What else happens to that child? Because we forget we have a relationship to our children. That's very powerful. What else happens?
I was just going to say, but that is our discipline. Because that's how we've been taught that that's what love is. So we take it, right? Like you were saying, that we take it and we do this to a marriage because we understand that, everything was fine at home as long as I was good. And if I'm good, we shall be fine. And parents don't allow children to talk and, we don't grow up with negotiating skills in our family and being able to say I disagree with things. Then we don't take it outside either. And so we don't have basis to create a discipline of what real love is. It's been defined this way.
It's almost a cultural thing. You know, the whole culture, the whole method, the whole way, the whole process of coming into full humanity in this country is dysfunctional. It cuts across the whole line, though. But it's very interesting to begin to see a lot of things. That this child that has now the task of pleasing the parent in order for the parents to demonstrate their love for that child. This child now begin to have feelings of being not good enough. They don't feel good enough. This feeling of not being good enough is what I call self-contempt. It's a painful experience. Very painful. Because I'm not good enough for my mother. That's painful. I'm not good enough for my father. It's a painful thing. And when we impose the conditions on our wife or our husband that you must please me in order for me to radiate and demonstrate love towards you, then the wife starts feeling something wrong with her. and the husband start feeling something wrong with him, right? And move into this self-contempt. It is an ugly phenomenon. It really is. But I want you to consider these things carefully, soberly. Don't get emotional about it. Stay objective, stay scientific about it, and look at it. Bring full awareness to bear. If you see what I see, then you have to practice this discipline. If you truly want to change the quality of your relationships, you really want to move beyond attachment in relationships, you're going to have to practice the discipline of love. And the very first attempt to do it, you will begin to see how habituated you have become in your reactivity. Because this is not clear to you at first. You've been thinking, oh, you want to love and all this. No. You got a lot of conditions on your love. And remember I said earlier that it is the restriction of this flow of love that is the cause of all your personal misery. Because you injure yourself. Now you're going to suffer because either you will love or you will perish. It is that simple on this planet. People that don't love automatically fall into some depression. Automatically. You have no other place to fall but into depression. You see, you feel like killing yourself there because life loses all of its meaning. You understand? You become totally isolated. You have contracted yourself right out of existence. And now life is out there and you just you look on the periphery. And you become cynical and you become bitter. And notice that these attitudes and experiences that you derive from your personal relationship begin to carry over into your relationship with the cosmos, with life as a whole. Now you see in life, when life doesn't please you, what do? When you are not pleased with how something is going on in your life, what do? How do you respond to that? That's right. And what is that withdrawal called? Clinic. When life doesn't go according to your expectations, when life doesn't please you, you feel unloved by life. And then you tend to want to separate. And you withdraw, and you step right into depression, isolation. And if you stay in that state too long, what happens? Yes. You become suicidal. And again, I want you to begin to see how this mental habit that we have formed unconsciously goes against the whole phenomena called living. So we really want to understand this thing. So if you have questions, don't be shy, don't hesitate, because I want you to be very, very clear on this thing. So the first thing to do, to add to your actual homework, actual things you do, I want you to practice the discipline of love. Practice some bhakti yoga in your personal relationship starting now. Okay? And don't be worried about, well, Bhagwan, are you suggesting that I stay there and get abused? No, there's no abuse going on. If it's real clinical abuse, okay, come talk to me about that. But the thing that you call an abuse is unreal. Yes, sister?
What happens so often, I think, and Mom and I were talking about this a little bit ago, is that I was married for 17 years. And I think what I thought, when I thought I was being abused, and I'll hindsight is 2020, is that I see how he was being abusive to himself, not to me. And I wanted to call it because I was the one my feelings were getting hurt.
Yeah.
But the abuse was happening to that person. And we were just talking about it. One of my favorite Khalil Gibran sayings is about the columns. Rob said you have to build on a foundation. And I said we were talking about how weak relationships start. We start putting bricks on top of that immediately, and wonder why the foundation is rocky. And when Khalil Gibran says that the columns are we are columns, but we are not side by side because then the foundation
Can't.
won't stand. And like I said, but it's hindsight and it's 2020 then, but I think that's what happens is we true love allows you to understand that the other person is going through what they're going through, and sometimes stepping back and letting them go through it. And it's just not turning off your valve because it's protection. And that's what I was saying the score sheet becomes, is because I think I thought I was doing that, and then I thought that didn't work though, and so now I better keep score because the world tells you, our world says to keep score.
And when we learn how to practice this discipline of love, this ego, you'll be surprised what happens. Because remember, we said from the top of the discussion that when we radiate and demonstrate this conscious and deliberate directive of tender, heartfelt feeling in the form of our attention to another human being, we are feeding that person Elan Vital, the real food for life. That person can't live without that. And when we feed that person, that enlivens the person. It brings that person to life. It's a healing thing. It creates a context for healing to take place. If this person is fell into a state of self-contempt and is full of all this kind of pain that is associated with self-contempt, right? And we think it's all about us. So what we do, we take it personally, right? As if it's a reflection on us. We recoil, right? And withdraw. And the person now is really in bad shape, right? Really in bad shape. And so we do a disservice to that person. And at the same time injuring ourselves. So you're absolutely right. And all of us who've been in long-term relationships, I mean, have you all been in real relationships here? Are we in real relationships here? You know, are you going to consider the relationship? I want you to really consider your relationship. Don't play games with yourself. I don't care what kind of games you play with me. I'm not important. I don't want you to play no games with yourself. You see, I want you to really consider your relationships that you've been in. I want you to see this pattern. I want you to see your mental style, your emotional style, your psychological style. I want you to understand the set of expectations that you have projected onto the other persons that have been in relationship with you. And I want you to see how when those expectations were not met, you had a sense of being displeased with that person. And that sense of being displeased with that person caused you to contract in the relationship and move towards separation. And it could be with your spouse, it could be with your children. This is how estrangement occurs, right? And to see furthermore how it went beyond the boundaries of your immediate family now and have extended to your whole relationship with cosmos. And now you're having a sense of the same tragedy going on between you and divinity. Now God don't care nothing about me. Life don't like me. People don't like me. Look at this kind of ugly little corner that we have worked ourselves into. To see it and then to take action against that. It's worth it. It is really worth it. It really is worth it. And for the first time have a taste of freedom. So that becomes the first practice. As you say, we have got to actually start consciously practicing the discipline of love in these relationships. And yes, catch ourselves, even when I'm feeling that the person I'm in a relationship with is not loving me, right? I need to still demonstrate and radiate the love. And that's hard. And I tell you, it's hard from my own personal experience. That's hard. That is hard. I remember laying in the bed one evening, right? Angry at my wife, right? And the same insights that I'm sharing with you have been shared with me, and I couldn't get it out of my head, so I couldn't slip back into that old paradigm. But yet, I felt it was very difficult. It was the most difficult, the first time, I'm telling you, it is the most difficult thing in the world to do because my style had been that, well, I'm retracted now. You know, I've contracted myself. I've recoiled from this situation. Right? I'm not going to feed her nothing. You understand? This woman is displeasing. Right? And I remember laying there. I couldn't even touch the woman. I mean, it's strange. I couldn't even touch her. I couldn't even, you know, you don't want to make no contact. This recoiling is complete, isn't it? I mean, it really is. I don't want a leg touching me, you know. Nothing. You see, don't touch me. Don't look at me even. And I remember struggling to try to direct some tenderness, some heartfelt attention to her. It was a big struggle. I must have laid there for at least 2-3 hours. I was frozen. I couldn't do anything. I really. And I come to realize, you see, what a pitiful condition I was in. Right? Later, with much effort, and I don't know if you've ever been in those kind of strange catatonic states between sleep and wakefulness, where you're awake but you can't move, right? Right? It was almost like that experience. Spiritually, I was awake, but I couldn't get my arm to move, right? I couldn't even get my mouth to let some of my tenderness even out of my mouth, you know? And yet I knew she was starving. I knew she needed some of my elan vital. I know that, you see. Because in my contracted state, I had cut off all my attention. You all know what I'm talking about, right? You see. And she was starving in that process, right? And it was very difficult. So I managed to get a few words out. They didn't make no sense. It didn't matter, right? I mean, they didn't make no sense, but I was able to finally break through for the first time in my life, you see, and break through that, right? And so you won't get it right the first time. That's all right. You know, it takes practice. It'll get better each time. But you have to start radiating and demonstrating this love in these relationships. Yes, sister?
Not to keep the subject on Joyce or anything, but I remember once you shared with us that you told her once, and she's probably still mad at you, that the minute you stopped feeling the love, you were gone.
Yes. She might be angry about that. I might open my big mouth too soon.
but I mean,
yes.
What did you mean by that? You will be gone, because this is what
Yes.
Wade and
Yes.
McKee and stuff were saying.
Yes.
There's-
The thing is this, sister, that example that I just shared with you was the most frightening experience for me, because when I can't radiate and demonstrate love, it's really time for me to go. Not only from Joyce, I don't need no relationship. That's the difference. When you say it's time for you to go, you mean to leave Joyce and go now to Mary. That's not what I mean. I mean, when you can't do that, time for you to just sit your tail down somewhere and do a whole bunch, because you ain't fit to be in no relationship with nobody. You really aren't. You really aren't. You see. So Joyce becomes symbolic. I'm not ready. Because I can't demonstrate no love. I can't radiate no love. My elan vital is suppressed, repressed in me. And why? Because my ego is in control of the flow. My ego, unless this person pleases me, I can't love it. I mean, look at this. This is nonsense. This is shallow, big time. Yes?
Well, how about the reverse of that, or the inverse? How about if you being starved?
Yes.
And they hold back their love because you're not pleasing them, or what they perceive that you're not pleasing them.
Very good question. Because that seems to be a problem. But what I'm telling you is this, Lieutenant, is that if your own elan vital is not frozen, right? Remember I said from the beginning that the highest state of spiritual attainment occurs when you have reached the level where you're actually able to love whether the person is loving you or not. And why are you able to survive in that situation? You know how to, it's because it's your own love in you that keeps you alive. You see? You've reached a state where there is none of that stuff. It's really strange, like how the body, you know when you go on a fast and you don't die, why is that? Because the body has stored in itself life forces, right? You can go 40 days or so with no food. It's hard, you're not going to die. 41st day, you might be in trouble now. But the point is that you got a lot of speed. Well, it's sort of like that, is that this energy nourishes you as well. You see, let me put it like this here. The starving state does not take hold of you because you're full of the love. It's very hard to explain with words. It's kind of a paradox here. So you'll have to kind of bear with me as I try to paint these pictures in words. But I'm really trying to describe something that can't really be described in words. So you just got to kind of intuitively get a feel for this thing, you see. When you're in a relationship and the person, first off, the thing that has to happen for you to feel starved is that you yourself have to be having the experience of not being pleased by that other person. Is that right? Now, so what happens though if you removed all these expectations? What is the case then? When you don't bring no expectations. When you're in a relationship with this person just on what this person is, period. Nothing is imposed. Nothing is conditioned. Then what will be your experience? But I'm saying you won't even have the experience of being unloved at all. You have to look at how we set ourselves up for the experience of being unloved. You've been thinking that you having the experience of being unloved because the person is doing something to you. Is that right? The causal direction is from the other person, right? Well, I'm telling you that you have cut your own self off from the experience of being loved because of all of these expectations. Now, the woman cooks you a meal. It ain't no 10-course dinner, but it's a meal, right? She's done something, right? But because your expectation that she's got to be a gourmet cook, right? You cannot even feel the love that she had involved in even just making you that. You discount it. You're not available to it because you have these expectations. So, Lieutenant, as we work on ourselves and go on, and we can't do this overnight. Let's be very clear about this here. This is not an overnight process. But we have to go on cutting through our own, crap. Yes, sister.
I think it's also key to realize that yes, we do these things, but it's based on the fact that our earliest thing about pleasing is parents and God.
Yes.
And the culture that we are in says that even God will turn his back on you if you don't do the pleasing things.
Yes.
Even God will condemn you to eternal damnation
Yes.
if you are unpleasing. And so it's kind of hard if God feels this way about people for you not to pass that on to other people in your relationship.
It's very difficult because in order to come, as you pointed out, sister, in order to really liberate yourself, that's what liberation is about. It is liberating yourself from these kind of factors that has shaped our psychology up to this point. And that is a struggle. But that's what the whole spiritual path is about. It's about transcending the conditioning that we have all been subjected to, just by virtue of being a part of this kind of culture. And we will have some condition no matter what part of culture we were born into. So it's not just so much a West and Eastern thing, because in the East, you'll see people are as messed up, maybe even more so. But the point is that that's a whole cultural thing, and our whole task then is to transcend this conditioning, this socializing process in us, particularly in these critical areas. And so you're absolutely right. Very often, all that has happened in religion is that man has projected onto God his own quality. It has nothing to do with God, you see. At all. It's man's projection onto God, these characteristics. And then we feed back on it. So it's an ugly, vicious circle that we turn into. But the thing we really have to examine, and we have to start from where we are at. And the fact of the matter is that we all have these expectations that we have imposed upon others who we are in relationship with. And that our experience of being unloved is directly related to those individuals' ability or willingness to acquiesce, to adjust to, adapt to, and enact our expectations. And that's really the bottom line. And the more outrageous our expectations are, the rarer is our experience of being loved in that relationship. So if you're feeling that you've been in a billion zillion relationships and nobody has loved you, I want you to look at that. I want you to look at it. I want you to consider that. Why is it? What's going on? You've been in a relationship with this man, this woman, this man, this woman. You got about 10 or 15 relationships you've been in. And still you're coming out of these relationships without the experience of being loved. I want you to consider that with me. What's going on? Bhagwan, I'm in a relationship now. I'm not being loved. Okay, let's look. Let's look. You have the courage to look with me? Let's look. to see what's happening in that relationship. What are your set of expectations that you're bringing into this relationship? And more importantly, where did you get them expectations from? Those of you who have had the misfortune of working with me on a one-on-one basis know that very often the first thing I want to do is take you back to when you were 4, 5, 6 years old. And you may say, well, Bhagwan, why in the world? But the reason I want to take you back is because I want you to see the genesis of your nonsense. All right? I want you to see the genesis and the origin of all of these conclusions that you have reached about life, others, and yourself. All these great truths. I want you to see where they came from. I want you to see the 4 or 5-year-old kid, uneducated, no life experience, nothing, formulating all those values, conclusions, beliefs, and then trying to make the world and other people fit some 35 years later. And it is nuts. Is it any wonder that you go insane? Is it any wonder that any of us can remain sane with this kind of baggage? Sanity becomes a rare phenomenon. You see, the psychologists tell us we all a little neurotic. All of us. We really are. Because neurosis seems to be part and parcel of the cultural experience we've all been through. It doesn't have to remain like that. But if you want something to change, you got to do some work. You got to do some work. You got to do what I call homework. You got to do that stuff. You see, it's not going to happen through osmosis. You got to do some work. And you got to have some courage to do this work. So, this then is the first method. Well, let's talk a little bit about, and start talking a little bit about the second method. And probably as we go along, I'll keep coming back and forth to these things here, just in case it has not fully dawned on you. Karma Yoga, the discipline of selflessness. This is yet another approach. All of these methods, all of these techniques are designed to help us loosen up our grip on this thing called ego. Okay? And I said earlier that karma very often is meant to represent only our outward actions. And that is a half understanding of the notion of karma. Karma is also our inner reactions. And it's these inner reactions that begin to shape behavior. Those are what we call the samskara. Those are the impressions. You see, everything that happened to you, it impresses the mind, don't it? It leaves a faint impact on the mind. That becomes an impression. Now, these impressions now begin to start building up a certain momentum that predisposes you to react the same way the next time, right? And after that next time happened, after a while, you got a mental habit form. So we want to look at karma yoga and how the discipline of selflessness can help us transcend the attachment of ego. Well, one of the first things we have to understand is that action has a component of what we call will. You will. You have a will. Whether that will is free or not, that will we'll come back to that at a later time. That's a lot of metaphysics involved in that. But all of us usually have at least the illusionary feeling that we have a will. And with that will, we try to produce certain results. Right? Sandra shared with us last time a comment that she said when she was growing up, how she had will for herself a whole set of actions that she had a whole bunch of results that she was expecting to follow from those actions, right? Like all the rest of us, right? She wanted to get her some stuff, of course, right? But importantly, she pointed out in the class that, well, she had decided to get her man, get her a baby, and so forth and so on. And you wanted some results. You wanted a result of the experience of being accepted, if I remember correctly, right? She wanted to will for herself the experience of being accepted, right? Well, she said that you didn't get this. Is that correct? It didn't come out. Didn't work, did it? Didn't work. And a lot of times, Sandra, it has not worked for any of us. Point is this, and when you didn't get this feeling of being accepted, how did you feel?
Depressed.
Right. Depressed. Angry. Sad. A whole array of negative emotions. Is that about right? Dukkha, misery, unloved. Did you have the feeling of being unloved?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? So something wrong with me, right? There you go back building you some more self-contempt. I'm all messed up. You see? Now God has not created you messed up. You're perfect. You know, from the top, looking from the top down at you, right? Perfect. No problem. God don't even understand what you're talking about. Something wrong with me. Nothing wrong with you. Maybe something wrong with the way you think about yourself. And that was dependent. The point I'm making is that we all have this will, and we always expect certain results from our action, whether they are material or non-material. In Karma Yoga, the whole discipline now is to act with no, concern, so to speak, with no insistence on the results coming out the way you want. Very difficult. Sure is, Avia. Avia is testifying today, huh? She said same thing about method number 1. Now method number 2. Yes. To act and leave the fruits of your actions in the hands of God, destiny, or whatever you want to call it, the mysterium. To withdraw that tentacle of selfishness that extends out from us along with all our actions. Because what is happening when we impose a certain form for the results to take? We're really saying unconsciously that these results must be pleasing. In this way, you set up a specific expectation of outcome of your action, aren't you? Right? And to the extent that you do that outside of the context of reality, to that same extent you set yourself up for some big time disappointment. Because reality will win every single time. Right? So the practice then of Karma Yoga is aimed at disciplining ourselves in such a way that we act. Yes, we must act. Sure, act. Do your best, 100%. But accept the outcomes for whatever outcome it is. Don't get caught up in it, because then you're tying yourself up into that pleasing syndrome. And then when life outcome is different from what you expected, now you're angry at life. Now you're just angry. You have that proverbial chip on your shoulder. You become bitter, cynical, you see, withdrawn. Because life has failed you. Life has let you down. You see, it did not mimic your expectations, right? And you struggle, right? Very often you see we have goals, right? We all have goals, and we have ambitions, don't we? These are, again, forms of expectations, aren't they? Right? They really are. They're really forms of our expectations, what you expect. And then you'll work real hard for that, right? You'll expend a lot of energy for that, and then you don't reach you don't meet that goal, you don't fulfill that ambition, and you come crashing down. Karma Yoga means to act and leave the results in God's hand, but to fully act. Now, remember, unlike the Hindus, you can't become fatalistic. Well, God's going to do everything, I need not do nothing. No, 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 we're not talking about that. Because a lot of times we get very clever, though. Right? We want to say, well, we're going to let God do everything, I'm going to do nothing. No. Rumi, a great Persian Sufi and mystic, says that we have to tie that camel's leg, right? And close the gate. And then leave it in God's hand. Right? We have to do all on our side. But we have to let go of insisting upon the results of things going the way we have perceived and conceived that they should go. Because guess what? Life don't never go the way you plan. Wow. Why do that comes as a shock to us? I mean, really, why is that such a shock to us? And why do we go on living like life does go according to our plan? What is in you that make you continually insist that life mimic and follow your plan? What is that? Khadijah got all these answers. Come on, girl. Come on with it. That's all right. We just want answers. We don't care who answers our question. We want some
I
answers.
think what's in us, and again, I'm not beating up on Western culture. I just think I think what's in us is that our early ancestors thought it would just be so orderly is to say if you do this, this, and this in life, you'll get these results in another life. And if you raise children and people to say that that you will be rewarded by the Almighty or the universe or whatever if you do these things, then you just pass that on to everything and say, well, okay, if I follow the Ten Commandments, I'll go to heaven. So if I go to school for 4 years, I'll have a heavenly job.
What a leap, isn't it?
Yeah, like school counselors used to tell students, you're in control of your destiny. I mean, so they tell you, they make you think you have power to control it.
And the reality is that that's not. And it is that harsh reality that. And you're right. Again, it's a kind of cultural. It's a kind of cultural thing. You mustn't automatically conclude that because these people have set up so many religions, so many other things, that these people were enlightened. Most instances, they were unenlightened entirely. Good organizers, yes, but unenlightened. Totally out of touch with reality, right? And you're right. And we bought into that, right? Now, does that make us bad? No, not at all. This do it make you stupid? No, not at all. What I'm simply saying is that now that you are an adult and you're ready now to take responsibility for these things, right? You have to bring some awareness to this thing. And so Karma Yoga means that we have to learn how to act and yet remain detached from the outcome of that situation. It's sort of like practicing the discipline of love, isn't it? So that we could continue to act. Things are not going the way I want them to go. Continue to act if that's what is appropriate, right? But normally what happens when things are not going the way we want it to go? So what do we do then? We withdraw them. You see how we contract again, right? We go back into that ego posture. We contract and we tend to separate. We quit. Is that right? And most of us never attain our potential for success because we quit. Have you ever noticed that? We quit. And we quit almost immediately when that result didn't come the way we wanted. I saved me $30,000 and I opened this damn business, right? And I gave myself, 6 months. And in 6 months, I should be able to make $1 million. I mean, we have crazy stuff, right? And you get out there and after the 3rd month, all the money is gone. You can't even, and then you quit. You say, I'm never going to try business again.
And that happens with college graduates too. Come out with all these degrees and they go to the job market and after 2 or 3 rejections, they decide, I don't want to be this engineer. I don't want to be this.
That's right. Again, what happened is that you have the experience that things are not going the way that you had planned. They're not. The outcome of your actions is not what you anticipated, what you expected, what you have insisted upon. And then once you have that experience, you start recoiling. You start withdrawing. You start contracting. You start moving back toward that ego. You become separate. You separate yourself out of it. Right? It's powerful, right? Karma means having the ability to act irrespective of these outcomes. Well, if you're acting irrespective of outcomes, then what are you basing your actions on? If you're going to give up the fruits of your labor, then what should dictate your actions? If it's not, in fact, the fruits of the labor. Oh, I wish you could see your faces in here, huh? Right? What is it to dictate your actions if it is not the fruits of your labor?
Yeah, like love and helping other people, making sure that they're happy.
Oh, y'all getting good. At least I'm so proud of these two of y'all. Yeah. The motivation behind karma yoga is service. But Hindu's will call seva. Service.
Which has become a dirty word in our
Yes. Service to humanity. Service to God. We serve God through serving humanity. There is no direct way to serve God except through humanity.
How does that apply in a relationship?
Even in relationships. Even in relationships. Again, let's say you're going to do some karma in the relationship. All right? You're going to do some karma, right? That means you got to take some actions, right? You're going to have to do certain things. Or do you want to draw? Somebody wants to give me a real experience, right? I always make up these things. But if you can give a real one, we get even more precision here. But you got a real one, Bob?
Would you consider this karma yoga, just say I'm a man and I have a wife and she wants to go see one of these plays that's going on out here, which I can't stand, and you do it anyway, because this is something that she's really going to need. It's going to bring some peace into your house. You're not going to be arguing. The children see this. And so you do something that's totally against what you want to do, but you're doing it simply because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, I like the right thing to do part. And that's an example from practicing discipline of love. We're looking in the discipline of karma, of action, without selfishness attached to it. Come on, I'm going to make you work here. Think of something.
I got one. You married. And your wife.
Why are we going to talk about this marriage again, brother? These people are just relaxing now for me. All right.
You married and your wife take a butcher's knife and slice your car and stab it, and put a hole in your brand new car front tire. And you say, okay, honey, that's okay. I understand. I'm gonna look over that.
That might be some real good bhakti yoga, but it's not karma yoga yet. Karma yoga. I want to make sure you got this here. This is the only way I can find out. Yes?
Well, I remember I read this story about this lawyer, and I really admired him, and I would like to do something like he did. He graduated from Harvard, but he dedicated his life, and he could have made a lot of money, but he dedicated his life instead to serving prisoners on death row who had been put there unjustly. And he was, instead of making something like $100,000 to $200,000, he was only making like $20,000 a year. And, many people would have said, well, I went to Harvard, and I deserve to make some money, and but he had felt that this was more important, that this injustice was happening to these people. So he said, forget the money, the prestige. Obviously that's not a high prestige thing for a lot of people.
Yes.
And he said these people need help, so I'm going to help them, regardless of the cost to me.
I think that's good. Yes, that's good. Actually, it's a little difficult to make the distinction between the two categories. Actually, there's an overlap in it. But your example is the classical example. It's where you're deciding a career not based on any ego, not based on any selfishness.
But how does that apply to personal relationships once again?
Again, in personal relationships, it can be, for instance, it may be the reverse. Let's say that you need to make $1 million, right? Or maybe you need to have more income, right? And you may have to kick into a higher gear. You may have to do many things in a relationship, right? That is not tied with your ego gratification at all. Baba used a good example too when going to this movie theater where he has no interest whatsoever in going to the movie theater. In fact, he's going to just sleep when he do go, right? But he's going to go. You see, as service, he's going to render service. The component to look for is that you're very clear that you're rendering service. You're rendering service. Karma yoga, again, in relationships, is very subtle. very subtle, very subtle. But it's there. You have to kind of look for. I'm just going to try to get these things up here. Then as we go through the other two remaining workshops, we'll be processing them a little bit each time, because they're a little subtle. But it's an action. You see, it is action to act and to react. Yes, sister.
I think it becomes a pleasant action, and it becomes something that we become more willing to do, because he may go to that play with the intention of doing a service for his mate and intending to sleep or ignore it, and be delightfully surprised that it ended up being something that he liked. And so, so I think we end up getting a joy out of the service.
Because karma very often is a very physical thing. It's very tangible. You see, it's a very tangible thing. Bhakti gets in a little bit more equal. You know what I mean? But karma, though, it's very clear. It's very tangible. It's very solid. It's very physical. Right? It's very physical. You see, rendering service. You're doing the service. You're rendering service. You're doing saving. Right? Even though your own selfishness is not involved. Right? That's it's done with the body. Most karma yoga is done with the body, right? Bhakti yoga will include the body, but other components that is not necessarily the body, right? Karma yoga is exemplified, characterized by the fact that you're very physically, you're doing something with this physical body that is not tied into ego gratification, but in the service of another human being, in the service of your wife or your children, etc. That's how it starts in that relationship, right? You're rendering a service with your, actually, the technical term is with tan, man, and dan. Tan means your body, your mind, your wealth. In the service of your spouse with no ego gratification attached. Now, you can begin to look in your own relationships and see your body. How are you using your body in your relationship for your spouse without any ego gratification associated with it?
It's a hypothetical.
All right.
It's storming outside.
Yes.
And you don't know if your mate or your loved one, maybe on public transportation, storming. So, well, God, do they have umbrella? What do they have to cover themselves? So, try to make the adjustments to be there whenever they get off the vehicle. Would that be a form of harm?
It could be. What would be a closer that may cause you to say, Tony, come pick me up. And now you're going through all of this resistance. Damn, it's raining outside, I got to get up on my feet, I want to go down there. You know what I mean? Why don't you catch the bus and buy an umbrella? You know, that whole refusal, you see.
Yep, in that situation, aren't you acting because you were called upon instead of acting out of
See, the other one might have been more like a bhakti type of situation. Here in karma, you actually are challenged in these things. You see? You see the difference?
I see the difference. The
You
word
see the
challenge
difference?
is key.
Right. These are specific requests made to you. You see?
Oh.
Do this, honey. Right?
you just do it? You don't give her any, reasons why you can't do it. You just get up and do it.
You put your body, your mind, and your wealth at the service of the person. Yeah, it's hard. It's all right. Let's play with it
You
some.
sit down and you watch the movie. Honey, I want some popcorn. So the movie's only halfway through. So you get up and say, okay, well, I'm going here. I got to keep calm.
You tell me.
Why would you do it?
Why wouldn't you do it? Most of us wouldn't do it because there's nothing in it for the ego. There's nothing for the ego. Any situation for your refusal to do the thing is strictly based on the fact that you're not getting any ego gratification out of it. That is the criteria that triggers your refusal. Yes?
I have one. Okay, say you come home from work, right? You work like 14 hours. As soon as you get in the house, and your wife or your girlfriend like, well, I want this room painted because you should have painted it 2 years ago. She don't have no money to even buy paint.
Yes.
Okay? But you go ahead, you get up, you tired, you been up all day. You go buy the paint, bring the paint back, and you paint for it. Will that be some kind of common joke?
That's a good comment. Yeah. That's you really good.
I don't think so, because he sounds like he angry though.
You might be angry. That takes all the business away from you.
So it's
And I'm
not
glad.
real service.
All right,
It's
good.
just,
Lieutenant,
Just doing it so you can shut
Just
up.
that's
doing
right.
it, yeah, for
Lieutenant
social
has
reasons.
said something that is missing here. Lieutenant said that this, not only must this service be rendered, but without any complaints, without any grumbling, with no anger, with none of that stuff, right? Then it's real safe. Yes,
But
sister.
don't you, but that's a part of going
That's a
through
part of the
discipline.
growth.
Because then
That's
after
a
you
part of
do
the
it
growth.
and you sit down, you go, okay,
Yeah.
I like the way this looks too. And this is better and this is everything.
Because you already promised to do it, you just didn't do it when you said you was going to do it today. Or the
All right.
week, you know.
What I like Lieutenant's additional component here is that you're able to render the service, loving. All right? Loving. Yes, sister?
We had an incident about a week ago. But mine and my son were in the car, and I was asked to go into Dominic to purchase a couple items. And when I came out of the store, unknowing to me, they had made a bet that if I asked Mom to go into the store to purchase another item in another store, in Walgreens, of course,
That's
what would her
cool.
reaction be?
That's cool.
So after I was told to go into Walgreens and make the purchase, which I did,
Yes.
with willingly, of course,
Yes.
with no argument. And when I came back, they shared with me what bet they had made.
Who won this?
Oh, I won.
Oh, you won the bet?
Yeah, because I went into the store
Yes.
with no intentions
With-
of
yes.
arguments, or I just went.
No resistance, no
Absolutely.
animosity,
Yes.
no anger, no bitterness, no
No.
feeling of being imposed upon, put upon. all
No.
that. That's common. That's good. That's common. You render the service loving. Contrast that to the service you're rendering in your relationships. Because you're doing physical stuff, but look at all your grumping, all your complaining. I got to pay this rent. I got to pay this mortgage. I got to do this. I got to do that. Look at that. It's just grumbling, moaning, complaining with every little action that you do. Look at it. Now, you grumble and you paint the room, you grumble, that room is not going to come out beautiful. That room is going to reflect this grumbledness that was in you when you painted it. That grumble that was in you, that deep protest will come out in the food you cook. Food won't taste good. You see? Doing Kama Yoga is to put that love in this, that tenderness in it, that heartfeltness in it. You see? It happens all the time. You know, one of the things that I was watching my daughter once with my wife. Boy, my wife see these films, she'll probably really have growls. But I would just want you to know I'm not from Mars. But one of the things is that my wife, mine, thinks in terms of duty. She thinks duty. And so she'll do things, not necessarily with the right spirit, but she'll do them because she's the mother. So if the children need something, she'll give it to them. But boy, she's so haughty, right, in the act, you see, that it destroys the whole flavor of it, right? It just destroys it. You give somebody something, but then in the process of giving it, you just complaining, you moaning, you grumbling, you groaning, you so forth and so. It destroys the whole act of giving the gift. So look at your actions like that. What actions are in our personal relationship that is coming out of our grumbling, our mumbling, our moaning, our complaining? Yes, sister.
Your mate buys you a dress. So, you know, they just saw this dress. I just thought this would really look good on you. So you therefore, you know, thinking, well, I buy her this dress, she can wear it whenever. But say you just turn around and you just dress up for them for no special occasion. Is that any kind of problem?
Well, you create some problem. That's for sure. But what I'm trying to get you to do is to see that in every situation, in all relationships, we constantly have to, it's a give and take, isn't it? all relationship is a give and take relationship. I mean, there's something to be given, there's something to be taken. Karma Yoga is on the side of giving of that relationship. And it's given along these three lines, body, mind, and wealth. You know, maybe to make it easier, you just say body and wealth, because that constitutes pretty much of the spectrum of our relationships. And the act in which we give those things, in which we do those things, is it done lovingly, with tenderness, right? Or is it done out of all this grumbling because you don't want to do it because it does not lead to any kind of ego gratification? And it could be many things. It can be painting the house. The action is not the issue. When you're looking for examples, it's not so much painting the room. You have to feel inside yourself, you know, is it coming out of my grumbleness? Am I grumbling about it? Am I complaining about it? I'm moaning about it. I'm seeing that, hey, I'm not getting anything out of it. It's not enhancing me any. You see, that is the thing you have to look for. You know, it's not just, because that spirit of miser, like being a miser, you know, can be expressed across a lot of things. Yes, sister?
What should you do if you don't feel that you can rise above your resentment? Is it better not to do it?
No, do it anyway. Because with practice, it gets better. You know, very often we have to start out of resentment. That's the discipline of it all. Yes. And usually when you really are doing it, you will feel the resentment. Because we're usually in that ego state already. I mean, it's not like we're doing this all the time. Yes, bro.
I had a strange situation that happened this morning. And Tony, thanks. It reminded me of something that I did. My wife had this big annual fair at her job, and Sister Kiba had told me about a sale at her place, and I went to get me an outfit, but I saw this beautiful outfit for my wife, and I bought it instead. And I gave it to her with the intention of her wearing it to this affair, this upcoming affair. But it dawned on me this morning, you know, I said, well, look, Shirley, look. I know I bought you this outfit to wear to this affair, but you don't have to wear it. You have the freedom of choice to wear whatever you want to wear. But it didn't dawn on me at the time, and I know this sounds crazy, but it didn't dawn on me at the time that I was really dressing her up to go to this affair.
Yes.
But it hit me later.
That's correct.
Yeah, so
No, that was
I know
good.
we don't have anything.
No, actually it's good. It's good in the sense that you could, after spending your money, right, and all these other things, that you could release that. You know, you can release that. And what was it that you was radiating to Shirley? That you were radiating this kind of tenderness that says that I will not oppose upon your freedom to wear what you like. You know, that was a tender kind of act. You see? So that counts. That's good stuff. That's right direction. More of that. Right?
But Karma Yoga has to have a challenge, right? A challenge rendered lovingly.
Yes.
Okay.
Rendered lovingly. Rendered lovingly. And we'll begin to see. Because a lot of the things that you're doing, this area is really big. Your wealth. I'm surprised that nobody gave me, you know, too many examples there. That seems to be indicative of something. But it's using your wealth in your relationships in such a way that it is not just based on ego gratification. Look at it. Yes, sister.
I was in training and development for many years in the service industry. And an experiment I used to do at the end of a 2-day training to get people prepared to go out and service people. And I said earlier, it's kind of a dirty word for a lot of people. When you say service to them in an interview, you can see them cringe almost. You know? But I used to have them stand up at the end of the class and get in a line and touch each other's shoulders. And so there would be one person in the front that had no one in front of them, and somebody in the back with no one behind them. And I would ask them to massage the person in front, because they've been sitting for 2 days, stiff and tired. And I would talk about, this is just what I was expecting from them once they went out on the floor. It's a giving situation. Many times, like the person in the front they're just getting and not having to do anything for it. And then the person in the back who's not getting anything from doing it. But you just never know, because we don't know what's at the other end waiting for us. And I would talk about this for a few minutes and then say, because we would ask them to turn around and the courtesy. But what would be interesting, which I didn't know I would get out of this, was it gave me a tool to use for my follow-up, because of the grumbling that would go on with some of the people who just would be, oh, she want us in line for, you know, or they would be doing this, you know, and then watch them when they turned around and the person gave it back to them nicer than they got it, and were giving it, and them saying, oh, well, okay, and it was a lesson learned that maybe if I had done a better job, well, what a lesson for me is watch this person out on the floor. But you didn't know, you don't know what you're going to get. And I think that's what karma is about, is we set ourselves up for it to come in.
Yes.
And
See,
just wait and get
you're
it.
exactly right. The point we're making has to be again understood within the context of karma as it applies to relationship. You are in these relationships with these people because of your own actions. Now you listen to people and they start talking like they're some kind of a victim. You chose the woman. You chose the man out of your own judgment. You did that. All right? You did that. That's your karma. You created that situation. Now, if you want different situations, right? Then you gotta deal differently. All right? You want somebody to do something for you with no complaint, with no gripe, no gritting of their teeth. But you can't do anything for anybody without griping and gritting your teeth. So you're putting out exactly the experience that you're going to get back. I mean, you don't even have to be a rocket scientist to understand this. The great tragedy, sister, is that the bulk of us will have the feeling that we just can receive all of this love and attention and good treatment from other human beings, but we don't have to put anything in them. It's very sick. It's very sick. And the reality is that this person never gets those experiences. I listen to them every day. Sethra and I both are therapists. We hear these people fail, and they fail all the way through their life. They don't have no good examples from nowhere in their life because the approach does not work. It just doesn't work. So again, Karma Yoga is one of the methods. And what is it that we're attached to that makes Karma Yoga so hard? You see, is our own ideals, our own set of things that we want to do, and we don't want to move away from that. And it's that clinging to that. And Karma Yoga gets you able to do things without reference to back to your own ego gratification. You see, it's a training process for that. So we'll go back into that next time. So the homework will be not anything that you're going to put on paper necessarily, but things that you will actually do. And again, I want to remind you that those of you who do in your homework to definitely take advantage of the time that we set aside so that we can process this thing. And remember, I'm not even going to usually end like I normally end by, harassing you to do homework. I think that those of you who want, if you who do the homework, then I think you understand the purpose for us being. They said that a person that is thirsty will drink water. You see, and so if you're thirsty for these things, then you will do your homework. And so those who are not thirsty, we should not disturb them. Maharaji used to always tell us that sometimes when you are sharing the Dharma, the teachings, you have to do it much like a person tiptoeing through a room full of sleeping people, and you should not disturb those who are in deep sleep, just the ones who are tossing. So if you're tossing in the form of doing homework, I'm your man. I'm here for you. If you're in a deep sleep, okay, we should not disturb them. And let that person go on imagining what they like. You see, once the agony has become unbearable and too much, the words are there, the teachings are there, the seed has been planted. They will be haunted by those two. It may be 20 years from now, and they'll look back and say, my God, I could have avoided this 20 years ago if I had this support. So, on that note, those who've done some homework, please pass it up. And I want to end with reading this beautiful poem that Sandra shared with me. I hope you all have gotten a copy of it or had a chance. The poem is titled Life Is by Jewel Diamond Taylor. And I had never heard this poem before. So when Sandra shared it with me, I was so impressed with it that I asked her to make copies. It says, life is a mystery unfolded, a journey walked, painful endured. Because people think that happiness means the avoidance of pain. No. You can be happy and experience a lot of pain. There's no contradiction in it. It's pain endured. It's all right. Don't let it affect your happiness. Beautiful. See it. Because again, we lose the capacity to see how beautiful life is, full of all this cynicism and all this bitterness and contracted deep down in the dark dungeon of our ego. We don't even see sunrises no more. We don't see sunsets. We don't see the beauty in a flower anymore. Nature does nothing. We're not moved to the brink of tears, you see. Listening to the wind rustling through the trees. I mean, this thing is so beautiful, and yet we don't even see it no more. See it, right? A joke, we laugh at it, you know. So serious, you know, self-important. A song, sing it. A flower, smell it. Wonderful, enjoy it. A candle, light it. Precious or lifeless, precious, don't waste it. A gift, open it. Love, give it. Love, give it. Discipline of love, bhakti yoga, give it. Give it. Give it. Unlimited, unlimited, go for it. Light, shine. Beautiful words, worthy of our time and energy to meditate a piece of that every time. All right, any questions left about the homework, discipline of love for those who want to play this game with me? How many gonna play the game with me? Huh? All right. Now I really want you to play it. I really want you to play all out now. We got to play 100% now. And I'm reminded of what the mystic said. Look, all of us in here going to die. All right? Now let's be clear. Some are going to die from cancer. Some are going to die from their prostrate. Some heart is going to break down. Some is going to die from this here. I want to know how many would rather die from trying to love. How many would rather die from exhaustion and trying to practice bhakti? I won't die from that. I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to die anyway. Let me die from exhaustion in my attempt to practice love. All right. Starting now. Starting right now.